Hello and welcome back to a new episode of the Jedi In Exile, and it's something a little bit different. You'll see that we are here in person.
It's
Matthew,
real. It's real.
Here we are. So it's the Jedi In Exile. Remember to like and subscribe to the page. It feels really weird doing this face to face. I keep wanting to do that. But here we are. And today we're talking about one of the new series that has come out recently. So this is Tales of the Jedi. Six shorts, isn't it? But three of one storyline, which is Ahsoka, and three of another storyline, which is Jedi Master Dooku. So, Matt, give me your overarching view of the series.
I really enjoyed this. I knew I was going to love it because, obviously, we love Clone Wars. Yeah. It's Clone Wars style animation. Yeah. Big Dave Filoni back at the helm. I thought I was really impressed, I'll be honest, in that it's not very long. It's kind of 10,
some episodes are like 13 minutes of playtime.
Yeah, so it's not long at all. But actually, in that really short amount of time, they've managed to tell big stories. And what I like about it is that it stands up on its own. But I would say you probably want to go and watch Clone Wars and stuff. There's a lot of time jumps in it.
It's like everything. Dave Filoni has made it so that you need to watch all of Dave Filoni. But you need to watch all of Dave Filoni's work to understand Dave Filoni's new work.
Yeah.
But I think it does give so much more, I suppose, meaning behind, like, Attack of the Clones. The Dooku storyline gives so much more meaning to that. Ahsoka's storyline leading into Rebels. Like, there's just so much more that it kind of gives you, a different point of view.
Yeah, like, and this is what this was. Like, we weren't expecting this to necessarily be like a brand new series where they're going to do all of this stuff. It was kind of, this is like supplementary content for people who want to go and see more stuff that's going on behind the scenes. Obviously split as like a 3 and 3. 3 episodes Dooku, 3 episodes Ahsoka. Interesting split, but I think it was done like time order. Is that?
Yeah, so episode 1 is Dooku, isn't it?
So no. Episode 1 is Ahsoka when she's born.
Yes, it is, yeah. And then episode 2, 3 and 4 are Dooku. And then 5 and 6 is Ahsoka.
So I think it's time order.
Yeah, I would assume that it is time order. I think if you want to focus on the Ahsoka ones first, so this was a really interesting one with Ahsoka. Obviously, we see her like born. We see her with her parents and her tribe. She then gets carted off by this like wild, like saber-toothed tiger, and she manages to basically tame the beast. Comes back, and they realise that she's like a Force user, as such. So that was the first episode, and that kind of was a bit, I mean, I have to admit beforehand, we've watched the trailer to this, we reacted to the trailer, you'll see that if you want to go back and see on the YouTube channel. But I was more interested in Tales of the Jedi for the Dooku storyline, I've got to be honest. But the Ahsoka episodes, I like the fact that they went beyond the Clone Wars, so especially that episode 6 one, because in the trailer we saw Ahsoka was at Padme's funeral, and again you're like, oh my god, that's in Revenge of the Sith, so she's there. Bale's there as well. You've got Rex has a brief appearance at the end of it. It's just that it's the meme, isn't it? It's Leonardo DiCaprio that like whistling at the TV. It's like so much that you see. For me, the first episode was my least favourite. Yeah,
potentially going to be controversial with some Ahsoka fans, but that's the one episode of the 6 that I actually don't know how much it brought to the story of everything.
I agree.
It was, don't get me wrong, it's good to understand where she came from and everything, but actually it doesn't really tell you very much about her. No. It just tells you how they discovered that she was a Jedi, which is that important to me? Not massively, but hey. But I
was expecting maybe something of like Plo Koon to like...
Yeah, well...
Because obviously there's a lot of that in the Clone Wars, isn't there? That, little Ahsoka,
The thing that I really enjoyed about the 3 episodes about her, though, were like with the training thing, there were all these little nods. So there's a move that she does during the training where she kind of jumps and spins, and that's the exact one that she does
in the Clone Wars,
in the last series of Clone Wars when the clones were all shooting.
I really like that, and I like the fact, and I've seen this pointed out online as well, is that like Anakin Skywalker saved her life, like by making sure that she was trained, and not just against obviously the droids. And I think it was really interesting to see in episode 2 of Ahsoka's story. You see like Anakin with the really short hair, so you knew that timeline it was like the start of the Clone Wars, and Mullet Kenobi, but he's in the full clone armor gear, like he's got his full look, the mullet hair. It was really good, and I liked that was at a point where I think the Jedi didn't really know kind of what they were letting themselves in for with the war, but Anakin clearly saw early on that the Jedi needed to be prepared for this and needed to be like really part of the military.
The thing that I really liked about it was that the time jumps weren't like, it's a lot of shows are really guilty of doing the whole 5 years later or 6 months later or like in between each bit. And I really liked how it was put together, particularly with the bit where she was being trained, where it's kind of like she blacked out and then next time she's not where she was before, she's on a ship. So this is like mid war.
And I think when I saw episode 2 and I saw them inside the Jedi Temple and Ahsoka was battling the droid simulator, like the training probe we see in like A New Hope, it really reminded me the interactions between Anakin and Obi-Wan of brotherhood, how that kind of relationship had evolved. And Anakin was obviously now an apprentice, and it's the line, isn't it, that Anakin arrives there and he's like, oh, I thought... Anakin's like, oh, you're just in time. And Anakin's like, oh, I thought I was late. And everyone's like, yeah, well, that's what I mean. And then Anakin uses the same line on Ahsoka.
Yeah.
So I have to admit, the way that Filoni and the whole Star Wars team have done the storyline of Ahsoka clearly has no mention in episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. And you could almost, of the previous content we've had with Ahsoka, where like, how can she not have been in there? How can she be no mention? They've actually played it off so well through the Clone Wars, through Rebels, like through all the content we've had with Ahsoka, that you can understand how she's not mentioned. It's like a sore spot for Anakin because of their relationship, how it's gone.
It was such like a crushing thing to him that she left the Order. Yeah, massively.
So, no, that was brilliant. I think the Ahsoka storyline, again, for me, wasn't as mind-blowing as the Dooku one, which we're going to move on to in a moment, but it was still valuable content, I thought.
Yeah, and
considering it was like, 40 minutes of Ahsoka content, if that, 30 minutes.
and obviously we got to see the kind of the bit at the end where she faces off against the Inquisitor.
Yeah.
So that's kind of going over, I guess, a little bit of old ground.
Yeah, and kind of it sets up Rebels, doesn't it, with like the Fulcrum as well. Like Bail gives her the comlink.
They told a story in 15 minutes that if not, you have to go and I think the book's like 300 pages. So I do get it, and I understand what they've done. They've kind of said, look, for those of you that just want to watch and consume like visual media, here is the story essentially, which is, I appreciate that. That's fine. It is what it definitely is. But yeah, let's move on to Dooku.
Yeah, so the Dooku one was, I have to say, just amazing. It didn't answer any questions because I didn't have those questions beforehand, but it
posed new questions.
It really did. Yeah. So having read, and we were talking about this just before we started filming, having read Plagueis. And obviously Plagueis isn't canon anymore. Dooku wasn't really involved in the clones, in the deletion of Kamino from the archives, whereas in this it's set up straight away, that he has done that. And I know that was episode 3 of his journey. So let's start from the beginning. Episode 1 of his journey, it's him with his apprentice Qui-Gon, a young Qui-Gon. And it's really weird how we see that Dooku kind of has always had that same mindset of the Republic is corrupt. You've got senators that are corrupt. There's that line that the senator says, you serve the Senate. And he says, no, I serve the people of the Republic.
Yeah.
And it really delves into this, that Dooku, yes, as much as he becomes Tyrannus and a Sith Lord, actually his intentions when he's a Jedi are actually quite good.
Yeah.
Like he knows there's corruption there.
It's that thing of like the Jedi being the check and balance against people just doing what they want.
Yeah.
They're kind of this kind of independent outlook on things to kind of come in and say, no, this is wrong.
Yeah.
You know, and so yeah, it was cool. It was also cool to kind of see that you can now understand how he was corrupted because he actually gave into his anger. You know, fairly early on.
Yeah, he really did. And obviously Qui-Gon was the one who kind of brought him back in that first episode, and that was interesting, the dynamic. And I think that goes on, and we kind of got a hint of this in episode 2 when Dooku talks about Qui-Gon, about kind of how much he cared for him when Obi-Wan's in like the chains again. It's mullet Obi-Wan back, but it was really interesting that Dooku seems to really genuinely care for Qui-Gon. And you don't get that, I think, that sense in any of the books that are, especially the non-canon books that I've read, but even the canon books. But I've read so Dooku Jedi Lost, which is canon, and this kind of complements that book so well. And I really do recommend anybody, if you can listen to it, that's how I kind of digested that media on Audible. It was so good. And really interestingly, the Dooku episodes obviously cross over with episode 1. So, and we see Yaddle, who's voiced amazingly by Bryce Dallas Howard, one of the directors from The Mandalorian and I think the Book of Boba Fett. But just the whole storyline, it's like you understand why he's turned.
Yeah, massively. And I think this is the thing, right? Is when he leaves, like, it's not touched upon massively as to why he left. They just kind of, I'm sure it's hinted at that it's just kind of like difference of opinion.
Yeah,
and that's pretty
much.
Well,
Mace Windu says at the start of episode 2, doesn't he, that he's a political idealist.
Yeah.
You know, when Padme's like, I think it was Count Dooku who tried to assassinate me. So he clearly has like these ideas of what the Jedi should be. You know, not just serving the Senate. They should defend the people and stop the corruption. But it's almost like he thinks the Jedi have become probably too big for their boots. They're too far gone to be brought back. And so, apart from the whole turn into the dark side, and I've said to you before that I do genuinely believe that Qui-Gon would have been a separatist if he was still alive, because he is of that same mould. Now, I don't think that he would have turned to the dark side, because I don't think he's got that in him, but I do feel like he would have been a separatist at heart, because he sees that corruption.
I actually do wonder whether if Qui-Gon had spent more time with Dooku later on in life, whether he would have prevented Dooku from turning. Purely because, obviously, we see in the first episode Dooku kind of lose it a little bit, and Qui-Gon, as much as he still respects that master-apprentice relationship, intervenes a little bit to stop him going too far.
Dooku says, "Oh, you're a wiser Jedi than I am," etc.
But I think it's really cool, like, to see all the nods to watching him so early on kind of go in and delete Camino from the records, log in as Cypher Diaz instead of logging in as himself, like all of that kind of stuff, and then have the absolute gall to go stand next to Jocasta Nu and be like, "Oh, what's going on?"
Impossible.
But no, I think this kind of showed us a bit of story that maybe we didn't know we were missing.
Yeah, and I think we didn't know that we wanted as well. I think it was really clever how they've done this on Dooku, and 3 completely different kind of stages of Dooku's life. So you've got that Dooku probably at the age of like 40, taking on Qui-Gon as an apprentice, and Qui-Gon looks like he's probably like 15, 16, that kind of age. It then jumps forward obviously quite a number of years to probably 10 years before Phantom Menace, it looks like, with like Mace being obviously not on the council yet, but then he is on the council at the end of the episode. And then obviously episode 3 is set that time during Phantom Menace, where we see Dooku then turn, and obviously the whole climax is him fighting, Yaddle. And we didn't really know too much about Yaddle's place. We knew that she'd kind of left the Jedi Council, and we were talking before filming, we assumed that she'd maybe just, retired.
As much as a Jedi can do that.
Yeah. But it was so cool to see that fight, and obviously see that is if there was a turning point of him probably going from Dooku to Tyrannus, that's probably it.
Yeah.
So Palpatine says,
you've done well.
Your loyalty, if you prove your loyalty, kill a master of the Jedi Council. And so that really is, for me, when he turns, he says, I've done Camino,
he says,
the
I've
clones.
gone too far, doesn't he?
And he challenges Sidious straight away. He's like, you've gone too far. you allowed Maul to kill Qui-Gon. He's devastated by the loss of Qui-Gon, and it is almost like you say that Qui-Gon was the only thing sort of keeping him in the Jedi Order.
Yeah.
Like they have that brief conversation, don't they? That Qui-Gon's like, I've told the Council it's a Sith Lord. They don't seem really that keen on it. And Dooku's like, I've told them this for years.
Which is hilarious because obviously Dooku knows,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, of course, yeah. He's like, I've been telling them for years they're Sith Lords. But it was so interesting. And interesting that those 3 episodes of the Dooku kind of, it's not even really spoken about, but you just see his mindset and you see it turning.
Yeah.
Like
and
the Jedi are beyond.
You see him kind of gradually on that journey. Like he starts, obviously, you kind of said he's always been in that mindset, but it's just kind of it gradually ramping up to enough to make him leave the Order and turn.
And he's seeing the Jedi Council as such, but the whole Jedi Order don't want anybody to be different. So he says about like creative ideas, like Jocasta Nu says, Qui-Gon, his imagination, it's just like yours. And Dooku's like, it's something that these halls haven't seen in a long time or don't see enough of. So it was just, this was the best content of Star Wars I've seen in a long while.
Yeah,
since Luke Skywalker came at the end of Mandalorian.
And this is 100%, there's a lot of criticism that the animated shows were like set up for kids, and it was to appeal to kids. Like that's not
to understand
those 6 episodes were not kids.
No, and the thing is, to understand Star Wars now, you have to have seen the animated shows. The animated shows were like a bit of a bonus for like kind of diehard Star Wars fans, if you like. When you think of probably series 1 to 5 of Clone Wars, it was seen as like I have watched Clone Wars, and there's a bit more to it. It adds to the story. Now with the other media that's come out and the other content, you kind of need to have watched Clone Wars to understand everything like that, and Rebels, obviously.
100%. Before we roll on to like kind of wrapping up and conclusions, one of the things I do really want to touch on is the awesome conversation between Dooku and Qui-Gon where they're talking about Obi-Wan. And how much kind of that brings to the interaction between Obi-Wan and Dooku during Attack of the Clones. Where he says, Qui-Gon always spoke so highly of you. It's just those little bits.
It's interesting how they hadn't met before, because you would have thought that they would have met.
Yeah, exactly. But it's also that kind of thing of they didn't have to put that in there.
No. Again, it was just one of those.
Yeah, Filoni's kind of done that thing where he's gone, how do I take something that I've done and then find a way to link it to the source material of what already exists to make it feel more like it is part of that universe.
Yeah, and you really feel like, because all the non-canon stuff I've read, so the Jedi Apprentice series, which is mainly about Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan, but there's a couple of books at the end, like Tales of the Jedi, actually, the book, and Secrets of the Jedi. It's like a 2-in-1, where there's a couple of missions where it kind of the timeline jumps between Qui-Gon and Dooku, and then Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan, and it's very much that Dooku and Qui-Gon don't quite have a father-son or brother to brother relationship. It's quite cold and distant, and Dooku's always like, Qui-Gon seems to be within like the living force, and it's almost the opposite to how Qui-Gon and then Obi-Wan are, with Qui-Gon saying to Obi-Wan, you need to be in the moment, you need to be part of the living force. But this goes completely the other way, that Dooku genuinely cared about Qui-Gon, Qui-Gon cared about Dooku,
which I think makes
they had a relationship.
I think it makes more
it
sense.
Does. You don't spend 10 years potentially with each other constantly and not form some kind of bond, because even
though it's forbidden,
it's an attachment. It's one of those that I think it just explored that relationship so much, and again means that when we watch episode 2 now and Dooku talks about Qui-Gon, he was once your apprentice as he was once my apprentice as you were once his. It's almost like we'll be thinking now the flashbacks to this Tales of the Jedi.
Yeah, massively.
So it was brilliant.
So let's roll it round. Conclusions.
Yeah, it was effing awesome.
Yeah, I don't know how much more...
That's the conclusion.
To be fair, I don't know how much more needs to be said. Like, I think that is... It was epic. If you guys haven't seen it, go and watch it. Even if you want to watch it a little bit at a time, they're like we said, 10, 15-minute runtime episodes. Like, it's not a lot. 6 of them.
Yeah.
Worth the watch. Even just to bring that little extra bit of knowledge to kind of the prequels and all of that kind of stuff.
And we love prequels content, so we were always going to love it. And after our trailer reaction as well, which you've all seen on the YouTube page, we would have loved it.
Other than that, guys, let us know in the comments down below what you all thought. Let us know whether we missed some cool Easter eggs, because we probably did.
We were that excited, we've probably missed so much.
Exactly. And remember, hit like, hit subscribe, all of that great stuff. Share it out, let your friends know. And other than that, guys, we'll see you all real soon in the next one.
May the Force be with you all.